bomaqtalk 2019 with your virtual tailgate offering our comments on industry-specific information relevant to the conversations being held for owners, managers, and administrators in the food service industry and who are conferencing on important topics related to facilities options this week. We select a couple of topics of interest that we have experience in, would like to share, and expound on as our industry contribution to those gaining knowledge in this sector. We have worked with owners, managers, and administrators of food service businesses for years as a project manager and consultant, whether single location owners or national franchises. We have experience managing the design, construction, operational processes, and/or branding activities. Since relocating to Texas in 2015, we have frequented food venues selecting a favorite dish of habit. Some of our favorite venues, though we had established a great rapport with the owners, they still shied away from enlisting our support prior to going out of business. We don't know if it was out of pride, embarrassment, or failure to articulate what we do, or some other reason. Today we want to discuss in brief the dynamics of several different types of food service businesses that closed within the past 4 years. Our hope is that in sharing this information that others will be encouraged to seek the solutions they need early on, negating any undesirable exit from their business. Number one, the first example was a full-service restaurant in the state of Texas, closed about 2016. The ownership was a single owner and had family employees. The location was in a rural area, what we consider a rural area. Building type was retail plaza, so it was a tenant space. It was about 7,500 square feet. Casual dining. The exit was within 1 year. It closed unexpectedly and the space was released. It was a new tenant lease that replaced that business. The second example was a cafe restaurant here in Texas, closed in 2017. The owners were a couple. They also have family employees. I consider it being located in a rural area. It too was in a retail tenant space, about 3,500 square feet. The restaurant style was some finger foods and recreational hookah. It also closed unexpectedly and the space was released, so a new tenant lease. The third example was a cafe restaurant here in Texas, closed in 2017. Owner, couple with family employees, was in a suburban area. Retail tenant space, about 3,500 square feet. The style of restaurant was also finger foods and some recreational games. You could play games at the different tables. The exit was the owners actually transferred ownership to new owners, so they did sell the business. New owners came in and renovated and rebranded. Our fourth example is a bistro restaurant here in Texas, closed about 2017. Owner couple with family-like employees. Location I consider a rural area. This is a standalone building, about 7,500 square feet. Style of service was mostly simple dishes, sort of like a lunch menu. The exit had different parts to it. Ownership tried to do a partnership, then exited doing catering. The building was either sold or received a new tenant. The fifth example was also a full-service restaurant. This was out of state, closed in 2018. The owners were siblings. The location was inner city, Riverside, and the building type was a standalone building, about 10,000 square feet. Really casual dining, closed, and I'm not sure if the building was sold or if there's going to be a new owner. This one's significant because the owners were actually have been in the restaurant business for a long time, restaurant consultants, and still had difficulty in operating and maintaining a business in the food service industry successfully. As indicated, each food service establishment mentioned as an example were managed by owners, managers, and administrators who had great personalities, awesome food, and had feasible ideas about their food service businesses they owned. What happened is not definitive for each, but we can offer some factors to consider if you are in the food service business or if you are thinking about a food service business. I'm a planner and a big believer in pre-planning and putting management systems in place. So a lot of the factors that we're going to be indicating today, we would recommend you do this prior to opening day. First is the operational factors, knowing what the costs are per plate. That would include, cost of the goods sold, labor, supplies and materials, and then any of that overhead costs should all be bundled in your cost per plate. When setting your price per plate, keep that cost in consideration and establish a profit margin from that. So you got your cost per plate, which includes your cost of goods sold, labor, supplies and materials, any other overhead costs. That should roll up into your price per plate. You should be at least breaking even, and then applying the amount of profit margin, when it's 35% or more or less, whichever case. You should be calculating the revenue per available seat hour, plates per hour. So you're doing the previous calculations to find out the capacity of your menu to earn on your behalf and cover all of your overhead costs. And speaking of overhead costs, goes into the next factor, which is facilities factors. The dynamics of your location is very important. Finding out what the foot traffic is. If you are calculating in the previous your plates per hour, then you want to help yourself and help your business by selecting a location that has good foot traffic. Size of the location, just making sure your overhead costs aren't too much for your capacity to earn. The size is right for your type of business, and that the build costs are within the range that you can also afford. Consider your lease agreements ahead of time. Get them read over by legal support. Talk with the property manager or the owner about concessions. Have them review your layout, your signage. See if you can get concessions on rooftop units, grease traps, or any mechanical, electrical, plumbing upgrades that you may need because you're a restaurant. Restaurants need a lot more tenant amenities and MEP than other types of businesses. So knowing whether or not your owner or your property manager can assist you with upgrade electrical power, or whether or not the retail shell has considered a restaurant as a tenant and provided grease trap for the whole shell, and then you providing a grease trap for your particular tenant space. So those considerations can make or break a lease agreement. So having those commitments and some of those understandings up front will be very helpful. Who's going to manage the design and the construction? You don't want the design to get out of hand. You don't want the construction cost to get out of hand. So that needs to be managed alongside the overhead and operational costs, or considered alongside the overhead and operational costs. Your layout is very important and should assist you in getting that foot traffic that you need and those plates per hour. Furniture, fixtures, and equipment is a line item that will be huge for your kitchen, and if you have a customer area. So considering that those expenses and how that plays out in the location that you select will be important. Relational factors. Restaurants are very customer service centered, so there's long hours, attention to detail, and personal relationships. It's very fast paced and has a trend of having high employee turnover at different levels. So understanding that and countering that with good process and procedurals and training and other types of things to make sure relationally you're conveying your expectations to those that are working with you or for you. Our hope is that in sharing this information that others will be encouraged to seek the solutions they need early on, negating an undesirable exit from their business. The food service industry. We BOMAC talk about it. If you would like to continue this discussion one-on-one, connect via chat, video, or email, you can do so from our website. Self-schedule an appointment at our website, www.urbanetectonumber2.com. Select a day and time for us to have a conversation about your specific management needs.